Good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Like us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. My name is Damita Chatman. I'll be your host for the next hour where we speak life into the community. Last but least, all the opinions is not of the producer of the show, but the host and the guest. Again, I want to thank my guests for coming today. And we're going to have a good time talking about politics in this election. I want the guests to introduce themselves. I want 30 seconds because we got four young men that we want to get into, and we want to take the whole hour to discuss the election. So I'm going to start with Pastor, since he's the pastor, to give me 30 seconds.
Hello, I'm Walter Kimbrough, a retired pastor in the United Methodist Church, a native of Atlanta, started my ministry in Chicago, Illinois, and returned to Atlanta after having served in Illinois for 6 years. So my pastorate has been mostly at Cascade, 26 years, and 6 years at Ben Hill.
Thank you. Kip.
Good afternoon. My name is Kip Carr. I am here as a political strategist. I'm the immediate past treasurer of the Democratic Party of Georgia. I have been active in political campaigns in Iowa, South Carolina, Alaska, South Florida. So I've been in political spaces for quite some time. And Damita, so glad for you to invite me and glad to share this afternoon.
Thank you. Robert Dawson.
Hi, I'm Robert Dawson, a proud resident of the city of South Fulton, where I've offered myself for service before. I'm still here working, an advocate for the community and for the issues statewide and citywide that impact our lifestyles and our community.
Thank you. Mike.
First of all, I just want to take a quick second to honor the victims of a school shooting that just took place a few minutes ago in the St. Louis area. So we'll get a chance to get into that shortly. But my name is Mike Glanton Jr., and I'm a political consultant, been a political consultant for 15 years, active in several states as well. I've also been a candidate for the Georgia State Senate twice. And, you know, I love politics. I'm a serial entrepreneur and businessman, so I understand how important politics is to business, and I'm all about trying to educate my community and inform you and acknowledge you about how you can be involved in politics and not sitting on the sideline, basically.
Thank you so much. I'm going to dedicate this show today, and I don't turn the TV on until after 5 o'clock. So thank you for sharing that. But I'm going to dedicate this show today to a trailblazer that was called home to glory, Mrs. Orange, Reverend Orange baby daughter. And so the community in the state of Georgia have taken a hit, but God knew what he was doing. So let's go on and get into the show today. I'm glad to have all males on today. This was not the plan, but God knew what he was doing because I had to come back and kind of hurry up and get some folks for the show. I'm going to ask, and it's when I ask you the questions, you know, give me a quick answer because we want to cover a lot. The 2022 election is very important, not only to the state of Georgia, but the United States is watching us. And I know it was a statement put out, but I think it was another twist to that, and I'm not buying into that. So tell me how important this election is to the state of Georgia, Gladden, in the United States.
Thank you for that answer. It's extremely important because I think we're reaching a transitional period in generational leadership. And I see that in the state of Georgia, you know, we are under a very radical rule when it comes to some of this legislation and policy that's going out. And it's disproportionately affecting different communities. And so I think it's even more important for Georgia. You know, I'm looking at Florida and Georgia, how we both have an opportunity to be able to keep control in the Senate. But Georgia has never really been in this position. This is twice. And so this is a good opportunity for Black men and Black women to really understand our importance in these elections and where our vote counts. But we got to get educated. And so I'm thankful for more people being more understanding of politics and it being more polarizing, not just on a national level, but on a local level, because this is what's changing the trajectory in the Senate and the House right now, our local level politics.
Thank you. What about you, Robert?
I think it's very important, and I always look at the issues that impact me in my own living room. You know, I was in Publix this weekend, and the price of groceries, a couple $100 didn't go too far. So inflation. If you look at housing, of course, I'm a housing professional, home builder, and the price of rents and the interest rates are all going on. Mr. Glanton mentioned that there's been a shooting that I didn't know anything about, but we saw all the gun violence at Clark Atlanta University for homecoming, Southern University, and at other locations. It's even impacted my family this week, where we had a victim of gun violence. So these are vital issues: the economy, guns, and then also these Jim Crow 2.0 voter suppression issues that are going on. So the stakes are very, very, very high.
Thank you. Pastor?
I think it's not important, it's critical. It would have to go way down just to be important. This was one of the most important elections of my lifetime, and I'm 82 years old. So I'm saying it's critical because Georgia, for the first time in my life, is at the center, as it was in 2 years ago, 2020, at the center of the national political setting. And so what's happening in Georgia sets the tone for the rest of these United States of America. We see it not only in Georgia, we're seeing it now probably in Florida, North Carolina as well, which says the Southeast is critical because people who don't think as we think don't want us in control. Let me see if I can't say it another way. The issue is not individuals. The issue is power. It's individuals who will do what they are told to do, and to say what they are told to say, it's a matter of control. So all of that's important. And my colleagues on the show today have not said anything about Roe versus Wade. All of that plays right into what's going on in these United States of America. And if I could push it even further, the Supreme Court of the United States of America is very, very pivotal. And we've got to look at that with keen eyes.
Thank you. I agree. Kip?
Well, first of all, this election is critically important, as Pastor Emeritus Kimbrough has just eloquently stated. I believe that every election that we have experienced are touchstone elections. Why this year is so important, Pastor Kimbrough just talked about Roe versus Wade. We just learned right before we went on the air that Justice Clarence Thomas has issued a temporary stay in terms of Senator Lindsey Graham testifying before Fulton DA Fonnie Willis. So these things are so important. Who would have thought 10 or 15 years that Fulton County in Georgia would have been at the center of everything? I think that we haven't talked about the gas prices. We haven't talked about the issues going on in Ukraine, where Mr. Putin has decided he just wanted to annex a whole other area and make it part of his own. So I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're having today. I think that this year, 2022, is the most important year because of all the elections, not just at the top of the ticket, but all throughout the ticket. And I look forward to having that conversation this afternoon.
Thank you. Let's talk about, and this is going to be a yes or no question. Just a yes or no. We're looking at this election right now in the state of Georgia, and I'm a Democrat, so that's all I'm gonna talk about is the Democratic ticket. From the top of that ticket, from Stacey Abrams all the way down, and we have 130 plus representatives. We got a city council, we got school board, we got it all. Do you think it's fair for us to vote from the top of the ticket all the way down to the bottom of the ticket? Because what I'm hearing some people say, oh, vote for Warnock. But in order for you to vote for Warnock, you first got to vote for the governor's seat. So tell me, do you think we should vote all the way down from the top to the bottom? Glad, yes or no?
Yes.
Robert?
Absolutely.
Pastor?
You own it.
Yeah.
No question about it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And why I asked that question, if you guys remember Daniel Backman, when he was on the ballot with Warnock, and also it was no reason for Daniel not to get that position. But you know why he did not get it? Because they went in there, they voted for them two candidates, and they walked out. It was, if they had went down that whole ballot, he would have been in that seat.
That's true.
So thank you for that. Let me ask you, and I'm asking everybody the same question. How can we get the young people involved? I'm gonna go Kip. 1 second.
Well, here we are.
Okay.
So we're in this TikTok generation, and we need to make this the whole issue about democracy meaningful for people who are on TikTok, and why is it relevant? I remember when I was in high school, the NAACP worked to get principals as deputy registrars so that part of your graduation diploma, you would be a registered voter. I think that we need to go back to doing things like that. I'm not sure what's happening in terms of civic education, but we need to really work hard in this space between elections to help orientate our children, our teens, about why the issues are important, why these races are important, and what exactly do a lot of these constitutional officers do. I know that there are adults that want to know, well, what does the tax commissioner do? What does the district attorney do in a county? And I think that if we start to have those conversations with the Generation Z and as well as, I have a nephew that's in middle school. He was born the year Barack Obama was elected. So it's for all of his life, all that he's known is President Obama and then the president before Biden. So we need to look real carefully about that generation of children that's coming up, because in the next 2 or 3 cycles, they're going to be registered to vote, and they are going to, we need to make sure that they have all the tools so that they can cast informed ballots. It's one thing to be able to vote, but there's a whole nother thing to be able to cast informed ballots. And I think that's what we need to do for the coming generation.
Thank you, Pastor.
I appreciate that response, and I stand in agreement. My grandson was born on the day that Barack Obama was elected, and his name is Benjamin Barack. Benjamin for Benjamin Elijah Mays, Barack Obama. And so for me, it starts in the home. We've got to do a better job in making sure that parents are informed And parents then have a responsibility to share with other leaders in helping to educate their own sons and daughters to the issues that confront us, particularly as a people and then as a nation. That's critical. Our churches are critical in this, that we need to hear more from our pastors, the religious leaders in our town. Got to step up to the plate. There've got to be more forums in our congregations, whether that's on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon or midweek, when the candidates are invited in to talk about their platforms. We're missing out on that severely. And so in our schools, got to have those kinds of conversations. Let me push it a little further. We've got to have more reading experiences. What's really going on? I heard over at Morehouse a week or so ago where Roland Martin was the guest lecturer, and Roland raised the question of that congregation. How many of you have a copy in your home or in your office of Martin Luther King's last book that he wrote just prior to his assassination in Memphis, Tennessee? Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? And so very few of us have the copy, never to say that we haven't read it. Or how many of us have read the book or have a copy of the books that talk about who we are and where we are and the struggle that we are in, say like Caste, to understand the dilemma being Black we find ourselves in. And what is it that we do and how do we do to motivate ourselves that we are better than that. We are better than last place, and we approve that. And I'm just ordered a book that talks about that Black women will save the world. And there's something to that. And we've got to be looking at what's really being written. Who are the real scholars out there? And then we need to come together and have book discussions with that kind of material to ensure that we're well informed of the issues.
Thank you. And I'm going to be honest. I don't have the book, but I promise you this week I'm going to have every last one of the books.
You gonna get it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
What about you? What about you, Robert?
Well, I think Kip was spot on with the marketing. Of course, this is a hip hop generation, so we have to meet them where they are. I also talked to them. A big part of it is a financial frustration. So jobs, right? We fought for a $15 minimum wage in the city of South Fulton, but now to live in the city of New York, you have to earn about $85 an hour. So there's a huge gap there. Atlanta's not far behind. So jobs, education, housing, and even healthcare. A lot of young people, spending $200, $250 a month on healthcare. It's really straining their budgets, or they're going without healthcare. So, of course, the marketing, but we have to really come to them, meet them where they are, and address these issues that they are frustrated about.
Thank you. Mike?
With all due respect to my predecessors for coming before me, you said we were going to have a real conversation. So I want to have a real conversation. I want to give you a real answer. From my perspective, being a two-time Georgia State Senate candidate and being a young man out here in these streets with these people, these young people, they want to be heard. They want to be involved. They want to have a part. We can give them all the speeches. We can give them all the analytics and things like that. But until we're out there with them, they listen to crazy music. They're moving to their own beat. They're not following the respect code. So what I remember is myself being the young man that I am, with the swag that I have, stepping out there with those young people and them wanting to know what the position of a Georgia State Senator does based on my opportunity to give them access to that, based on my sharing my story, really being honest with them about what I am, who I am as a man, and what it took to get here. These young Black kids, they feel like, they're counted out. A lot of them, they may start out with felonies. Look at the prison system. The prison system full of young people right now, and they locking them up without even the proper containment. they don't have the proper supervision or space. So they're creating games and they're starting to click up. And it's getting worse because when you re-release back out in the world, you don't care nothing about nothing unless it's a brown bench with a judge in front of you or something that you're talking about in terms of your money. So we have to be able to really relate and bring politics back down to that level of helping them understand how this affects you, how it affects the kids that you're sending to school for the last 8 to 10 years, how it's affecting. So that way people won't be like, yeah, it don't affect me, because they may be in an unconventional job or untraditional job or something like that. It affects you all the way down to the taxes that you pay. So I think that we got to start having a real conversation, and we got to start grooming and getting some of these young leaders in place after elections, before elections, start getting people ready. You know, I mean, I got a whole day, all day to spend.
I hear you. So we go
passionate about that.
You gonna get into my question, so I'm gonna cut you off.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. We got a question from Facebook. And this is a short answer. Who are influencing our children? Mike.
I will hope we are, but we know that the music and the media and social media is definitely influencing our children. So I think it's their peers and social media. Because social media is not, they're the platform. People still go on social media to influence. They have a position now that they didn't have in the 80s called influencer. We ain't know nothing about that. Was a socialite. Now that's an influencer. So that's what they're doing. That's who.
Okay. Robert.
Yeah, I think Mike hit it dead on. You know, again, this is a hip hop generation. So, of course, hip hop music, social media, and beyond just the social media, the mainstream media, where they're really not properly represented.
Okay. Pastor?
Yeah, I would say it's peers. And I'm glad you talk about hip hop. My son, the media named him the hip hop president when he was president of Philander Smith College in Little Rock, Arkansas. The language he speaks. And now as the interim executive director of the Male Initiative Morehouse College, that the ambassadors he chose were all freshmen. And the thought behind it is to start those guys at Morehouse College off their freshman year, providing leadership and to help them to understand what it really means to step up and to step out front. And they are doing it exceptionally well in the first semester of their freshman year. So it's peers who are doing it. And there are sensitive adult leaders who are providing leadership. Now, the Kimbrough son at 37 became a college president, and he wanted to be a president by age 40. It can be done, but it is a supportive community. That's the reason I said earlier, the family. Don't forget about the centrality and significance of the family. My friends, that's where we're failing.
Yes.
Let me put the component in there. I said to my wife this morning, I said, honey, minimum wage can be set at $100 an hour. And then I stand to tell you $100 an hour will be poverty.
I love that. I hear you. Let's talk that in existence. Kip.
Who are our children and young people listening to? It's whoever goes viral. I think we've seen it's not just TikTok, but whoever is able to come up with something that's cute, that's hip for 15 seconds. That's who the young people are going to listen to. My wife and I, 2 years ago on our wedding night, were at a hotel here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I heard this, it was like a roar going on. I didn't know if it was thunder because it was late November. Anything can happen in Atlanta with regard to weather. I looked out my window and it was children as far as the eye could see. And they had converged on, I think it was a movie theater that was near there. And we have seen where there are, and I think there was maybe there was a fight that ensued, and it was all because of one person that put a post on either Twitter or Instagram, hey, meet us here at 7 o'clock. 500 people showed up. So the question is, how is this happening? And I agree with Pastor Kimbrough. I believe that it needs to happen in the home. We are probably the last generation of adults that that was really raised by that village concept. If you weren't called out by your parents, somebody in the neighborhood was able to call you out. These days, it's not like that anymore. And we need to get back to that. We need to get back to where your neighbors can call out your children and you not having a problem with it.
Amen. I think that the event that you're talking about, when they put out on social media, meet there at 7 o'clock, I think that's the event where downtown where my church member son got killed at that event. Let me ask you a question.
Ms. Chatman, I want to say something with Mr. Carr and Mr. Pastor Kimbrough said. These households these days that we're dealing with, it ain't going to be in the household. We have to take the village approach back. That's the only way. And so while we're reluctant to talk to this young man when he walk in the store with his pants hanging off his butt and he got a clip bigger than his leg hanging out of a little bit of gun, we don't want to talk to him. I understand. I see the aggression, but that's what we're dealing with right now.
Absolutely.
And these are the people that are going to be leading our community. Like you said, we are the last Sunday school kids, and we the last kids that actually got that rooting from grandmama to where we know better when we go outside. But now we're dealing with a different breed.
Right.
I'm going to meet in the road with them.
I'm going to read this and then I'm going to ask another question. But this comes from social media. Slavery or civil rights didn't have social media, but the word got out to organize and stand up for what's right. I'm gonna let that marinate. We gonna hit that. That's gonna be the last question that we hit. But let me ask you this about this election. It's so important, and all eyes is on Georgia. You got Florida, you got North Carolina, but particularly Georgia. Do you think, and this is a yes or no, do you think, and how do you feel about having a Black woman in charge? I'm going to go with Glanton.
Well, a Black woman always been in charge of me because my mama birthed me. So I started out being with a Black woman in charge, and I had a grandmama and everything.
I love it.
You know, we know Black women can handle the wheel well. Just keep your brothers in the car with you, you know.
Oh, I love that. I see you kind of thinking what I said. What you say, Robert?
Definitely time for Black female leadership. It's been demonstrated on the local level successfully. So glad to see it in the governor's office.
All right. Pastor Kimbrough.
Absolutely. It's time. It's past time. I'm really excited about it. I voted on the very first day, on Monday of last week. I am thoroughly excited. I'm thrilled to have a woman. In fact, my in-house theologian was my maternal grandmother, who had a second grade education, who weighed 98 pounds, soaking wet, 4 feet 11 inches tall. But she told me that no police officer would ever have to beat me because any beating needed to take place, she was going to do it at home. Would you believe me if I told you?
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. Kip.
Absolutely. And I think that just as everybody else said, you know, I'm the product of strong Black women. I used to say that, you know, I grew up, I had when I would speak to groups, I had a drug problem because my mother was active in NAACP. She drugged us everywhere with her. We didn't have any choice. We didn't have any say in the matter. And I think that what we have now is phenomenal. And I know, Damita, you want to just talk about Georgia, and I believe because of where we're sitting, is Georgia is very important. But I gotta talk about Florida for just
absolutely, absolutely.
I gotta talk about Florida
Come on, absolutely.
because Val Dimmons,
Woo-hoo.
the debate last week with Mr. Rubio. I'm not sure how many of you saw that debate. Tears was rolling down my cheeks. And I was thinking about this woman behind me, Shirley Chisholm. I was thinking about Barbara Jordan, who in strong Black women that were in the political spaces when I was a young person. And to see a Black woman, and Pastor Kimbrough, I'm sure you will remember Lenora Fulani that ran for president back in the 80s, and how she was thought of as being radical and out of the mainstream. So I'm just really excited that we are at this stage. It's long, no, not just yes, but it's long overdue. We should have been here several cycles ago.
Amen.
Absolutely. And I just believe that this is the year of the ladies, the women, and where my hometown, and Kip is from Kentucky, and I'm next door to Kip up there in Ohio. And we, my hometown elected the first Black mayor ever of that city. And it's a red state. So it's time. And I had a conversation about Black women with a young man, and he was just adamant that we shouldn't have a Black woman in power. And so I left him with this. I said, you got a Black mama, you got a Black grandmama, you got a Black sister, auntie, cousin, and we're gonna leave it like that. Let me ask you a question. This is from Facebook, and tell me what you think. Parents have had to take civics, and most do not have any understanding. Do you think, I think civics become elective was during the Reagan administration. Did they take civics and economics out of school?
They did. I don't think it, I think they changed it to something like life skills or something like that, but and that just reconverged, but I don't think economics and civics is in there like it was.
Okay, here we need to ask why civics is not mandatory. Do you agree with that, Mike?
I agree 100%. If we would have learned economics when we should have learned it, we probably would be in a better financial position. Literally.
Absolutely. Robert, do you agree with that question?
Yep, and it goes to just the overall education system in Georgia. Governor Kemp has slashed the budget by $1 billion, the education budget, removing programs like that, while we're still at the bottom percentile in terms of quality education in the U.S.
Okay, Pastor Kimbrough.
Yeah, I think we need to reinforce and enhance our academic preparation. And if you look at it and read what's coming out now, is SAT scores, the testing scores are coming down, and even greater for us as a race. And that has to turn around. It's got to turn around. And so we've got to deal with that. So that's from the community level. I think that parents got to be informed, so that as parents, we speak up and to speak out. And to say it another way, as a pastor, I felt like we missed the mark, that we need to start working with couples as they are dating before they get married, so that when they get married, a child is conceived as a result of a loving husband and wife sharing with each other. So we've got to get the order right.
I agree. What about you, Kip?
Well, let me just say this. 10 years ago, when I ran for Georgia House, I know Mr. Glanton also, he ran twice. To my one time, I was endorsed by GAE against 2 trial attorneys. And one of the things that we talked about was that the whole education process We need to have strong support, even down to the janitors. Nobody was even talking about, because if you don't keep the schools clean, how can you have a good learning experience if the toilets are not clean? All right, so here's what I think. I think that I think that civics, we've moved away from it, as everyone has said, but there were certain things in my household, it wasn't even an option. I was gonna register to vote. When I turned 18, there were two things that I did on that day. I registered to vote, and Pastor Kimbrough, it was at the place where John Brown was tried and hung at Harper's, right outside of Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Then I went across the street and registered with Selective Service. And it was something that I was excited to do. But we need to get that. And I don't know why I was excited, because there was nothing on the ballot at the time that I was turning 18. The major election was 5 months before that. And it was not another election until the next year. So don't ask me why I was really excited about being able to be a registered voter. But we need to encourage that to these younger generations. And I think we're gonna have to figure out a way to pick up the slack from the local education. You're saying that they're not teaching economics along with civics. I think that that's something that the churches and the organizations in our community need to pick up that slack. And Amen. I think that once this election is over, we can start having those conversations instead of waiting until the next election cycle. 2 years from now, we'll be talking about president, and we really need to have that conversation long before 2024 gets here.
I agree. Mike, you got your hand up. Somebody sent me a thing when you said about having clean restrooms. They say, what about having clean communities? Mike, I'm going to give you a second to say something, and we're going to go on, because I got some questions that I want to ask, and I'm the only one going to be able to ask these questions. Everybody else scared. Come on, Mike.
To me, political education is vital. Narratives are extremely important. If you ask me a narrative, who's the biggest narrative pushers? They're some of our most favorite people. Channel 2 Action News, Fox 5, CBS 46, ABC. These are some of the biggest narrative pushers that if you look at how Atlanta, just look at metropolitan Atlanta and how we responded to the unconstitutional carry law. It's some people that didn't even know what the word constitutional was or meant, unconstitutional or anything. But when they push the narrative, see, I know how to read legislation. I'm sure the other guys on the panel know how to read legislation, but the narrative was everybody can carry a gun without a license, without a background check. Nobody can stop you. Guess what? Nobody had to read the hundreds of pages of legislation that has the boundaries and the things that you can or can't do and all these things. Nobody read that. Nobody checked on their mental stability, their training, anything. Now we got kids dying all over the place. We got moms dying, kids in the bed with their kids, pastors' wives while they sleep. So, these are real situations that we got to start educating ourselves on in order to understand the narrative. Because when you get caught up in the system in the state of Georgia, they ain't stopped building prisons.
You better say that. And when Governor Kemp passed that bill, put that bill into play, he really wasn't thinking about the Black folks.
He wasn't thinking about Metro Atlanta. Look at
he was thinking about politics and all. But let me go on this, because I'm gonna ask this question. During this election cycle, and I have not been to church, but I'm out here. Why haven't our Black churches took a stand on this Georgia election? they're quiet. Tell me why, Pastor Kimbrough, why haven't our Black pastors taken a stand?
Oh, you asked the right question. And I suppose only God knows. There's obviously a fear within clergy today. That wasn't always the case. When I was an active pastor, we always at Cascade had forums, and we understood that if you wanted to invite certain candidates for a certain office, you had to invite everybody who was running for that particular office. And it was an educational experience for the congregation. And those forums were always well attended. And so that's expectation. Now somebody told me, O.C.T. Martin is the one who told me, he said, Pastor, Cascade has more elected officials in your congregation than any other church in the state. Well, what I started doing was I started having breakfast meetings with the elected officials in my congregation. And I said, I want you all to be able to work with each other. And it was a very enhancing kind of experience. It can happen, and it can happen in a meaningful way. And churches come together, we can elect anybody we want to elect.
Absolutely. Robert, what do you think? We're going to keep them answers short because if you don't mind, we're going to stay over 10 minutes more. If you guys don't mind, what you think, Robert?
I think it's a great question. It's almost an academic question, not a political question, but two things. One, whether they've done it or not, here's an opportunity next Sunday in Fulton County when we're going to have Sunday voting, the first round of Sunday voting. So we have to get out there and get some souls to the polls and use those type of campaigns. And then I think it's an academic question because if you look back in the history of Christianity, the greatest movement other than the work of Jesus Christ himself was what the civil rights era was able to do with the Black church, that Black liberation theology. Of course, guys like James Cone and Dr. King and all those people. So it's a great opportunity. And I'm glad that you're pointing out that we've gotten a little lax. But here we are next Sunday. Let's mobilize the congregations, our church memberships and families, and bring those souls to the polls and make an impact.
Thank you. Mike?
That's a tough question to ask, but from the perspective that I've been seeing is it's a lot of disconnect between different institutions that have been traditionally the go-to institutions in our community, and the church being one. And that's just because, you know, again, we were Sunday school babies, but some of these kids, they ain't seen the inside of a church unless it was a funeral. And so how are we going to educate them on, you know, politics from the church standpoint when we got to get back out in the streets from the church standpoint as well? And so I think that, I don't know if that answered your question. I know your question is why haven't they stepped out? But I think that there's a disconnect in terms of, you know, that right there.
Okay, Kip?
Well, let's see. A couple years ago, I was working for a candidate that was running for office in the city of Atlanta. And we came up with a list of pastors that this particular candidate needed to talk to. And what I recall is, I think there was one or two pastors that after about 4 times that we could not reach them at all. And I don't want to presume that I know that they were disinterested. For all we know, there could have been something else that was going on. But I think that we really need to get back to where there was always 1 or 2 leaders that when they spoke, the community spoke, and everybody, if they were disconnected, they knew about it. Okay. And I wish we could get back to that. I was watching, if anyone has never seen the Ken Burns documentary, he did 2 really good documentaries about people of color. One was about the Central Park 9, The other one that he did was about the East Lake Housing Authority. And I really enjoyed that because it talked about the people who were the neighborhood leaders, and it talked about who were the religious leaders of the city of Atlanta at that time. And I wish we could get back to that. Now, Mr. Dawson talked about MLK, and I agree with that. How many in this generation know about Vernon Johns, who preceded Reverend King at Dexter Baptist Church in Montgomery? I believe James Earl Jones did an outstanding portrayal of him in a TV movie. You can find it on YouTube. But you cannot find a courageous individual that will say what he thinks and to hit with anybody else like Reverend Johns. And I'm sure Pastor Kimbrough knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I would like to know, who are the Reverend Johns today? Where are they?
They did.
Well, you want to say something, Pastor?
They did.
You said it, and I'm gonna ask a question, and this is gonna be a yes or no. We had an important election in Georgia back here a couple of years ago with Black judges. I think we had about 5 Black judges on the ticket, and it bothered me because Black preachers did not support them Black women. And this is a yes or no. I think sometime we got some Black preachers that will sell their souls for $1. Do you agree, Mike? Yes or no? That's a yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, Robert Dawson, that's a yes or no.
Yeah, I think we have gotten into the era of prosperity gospel when there are so many social ills that need to be addressed. So I'll have to go along with that one.
Okay. Pastor?
Prosperity theology, what it's called.
Okay.
That comes to the point we become self-centered rather than being shepherd, people-oriented, of being servant leader is what I advocate. I was called servant leader. And I'm challenged with that. It's just like you says, okay, I'm still a pastor. And I was just thinking, this past week I did 3 funerals. Those people say, I'm still the pastor.
Thank you. Kip, what do you think?
You can't retire. We still need you.
Kip, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Kip?
Yes, with an asterisk. I believe that is the case. Yeah.
Okay, I did some research this morning, and this, tell me what you think. In 2018, the turnout for the election for Abrams were 48.890. She had over 1 million votes. Between that, 8 to 11% of the Black male did not vote for Abrams. 97% of Black women supported Abrams. Do you believe, this is a yes or no, do you believe, Kip, that the Black man is going to show up for Abrams this election?
I believe yes. With I think that you will have to look at the different regions of the state. I think Metro Atlanta. I think that that may look at in one direction. I will when Wednesday and Thursday of election week, Mr. Glanton. I'll make sure to look at the breakout by congressional district. I know the AJC and maybe the Macon Telegraph will break out by county. I will be very interested in seeing in these areas in these rural areas that have a Black majority, a Black population majority, what will be the numbers? So Damita, like Washington County, Georgia,
I was just going to say Washington.
So Washington County that has is represented by Representative Matt Jackson is one of those districts. It's a swing district. So even though it's a Black majority county, Biden, I think, only carried it barely in 2020. Then Trump carried it barely in 2016. So those are what I would consider the bellwether counties in the state. Okay. But here's the thing, and I want to emphasize to your listeners, there will be a huge drop off because people will not vote for those races that they haven't heard about. You just mentioned that Abrams got about 1 million votes. Well, we still had a Secretary of State runoff between Raffensperger and John Barrow, because once people got finished with governor and lieutenant governor, they left. And if those same numbers voted, John Barrow would have been Secretary of State today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me say that, and then I'm gonna go to Pastor. You was right about mentioning Washington County. I was gonna mention that. Right now, we have a young Black lady, Tabitha.
Oh,
Tabitha
yeah,
Green
Johnson
Gibson
Green.
that's running in Washington County that need to get on that, get in office. And we're gonna go down to Washington County to help. I want to keep that out there that we're gonna need y'all to go down there and help that young lady. Pastor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's attitude. How is it we speak? When we speak in a positive way, then that soars. But if we are uncertain, that soars. Or if we are negative, that's what soars. So we've got to approach it from a very positive perspective and to say, men are going to support Stacey.
Absolutely.
And the thing in my spirit, and we've talked about the church, Stacey is a product of the church. Both of her parents are clergy. Both are clergy, mama and daddy. And so my denomination hadn't done all that I'm convinced we can do, but we've got to have a positive attitude and speak the positive language.
Absolutely, absolutely. Robert Dawson.
I'll say yes with 2 buts. The first, yes, Black men are going to support Stacey, but white men are gonna support Kemp in far greater numbers and with far much more vigor. Yes, Black men are gonna support Stacey, but there's not that political infrastructure. And in the Black community right now, Black men have lost the mantle of any type of civic pride or just activity. 68% of the voters in the Black community, women. So until we do something about that, Stacey's gonna be vulnerable. And it just goes back to the entire role of Black men in the community. I always challenge people, if you look at the mainstream media, TV, name me 3 strong Black men you see portrayed there. And you'll grasp at straws to think of them. So this is a great issue that we're gonna have to work on.
Okay. Mike.
I'm gonna give a strategic answer, a strategist answer, and then I'm gonna give you the answer that I've known, that I've been hearing. I think, like Robert just said, she's in a vulnerable position because Black men have tuned out a little bit on the governor's race. And I just myself talked to a very reputable Black businessman, been in business for over 50 years in the city of Atlanta, who told me that he knows all of the older Black men that he know, they voting with, if Trump come to town, they voting with Herschel Walker. And I guess that means they're gonna vote with Kemp because they don't see his policies as bad as they do in terms of going forward. See, we're looking at it now. The policies that they're doing now are gonna affect us drastically going forward. So I think that Black men are gonna be the either the tip over or the tip under. But I do know, like what Mr. Dawson said, is the representation of the Black man in America or Georgia in a political structure now is becoming obsolete in a sense. I know Reverend Warnock's at the top of the ticket, but Stacey's at the top of the ticket.
Okay, I'm going to jump in as a Black woman. If a Black man say that he gonna vote for Herschel Walker or Kemp because of Stacey or whoever, shame on them. Shame on them. because Herschel have really called y'all ignorant. Kemp don't give a rat's about you. He dangling a little gas, low gas in front of y'all and giving y'all a little stimulus check. Trust me, I believe if they get back in office, if they can put us in the cotton field, that's where they're gonna go. Shame, shame, shame on whoever say that. Let me ask you this, because I can ask this question, and I ain't never scared. The street committee is talking about the reason why the folks that ran and lost seats, or the Black man that's not going to vote for Stacey, is because she did not put the Black man in that seat against Charlie Bailey. Now, I'm finna let you answer it. I think that's a bunch of crap, because anybody that lost the race, you can agree with me or you don't have to. Anybody that lost the race, if you say that you were for the people and you love the people, you love the community, but when you lost your race, you go in hiding and don't say that, that let me know. And I said this, you don't give a rat's about nobody but your agenda and dressing up a resume. Come on, Kip, tell me what you think. Real quick, tell me what you think.
Well, first of all, I think that I guess you're talking about the running mate. You're talking about all the candidates.
The candidates, right? Yes.
Okay. So I think that, first of all, I think that it was clear that the candidates that were running had broad-based African-American support. And I'm going to agree with you, Damita. But here's what I know for a fact. I know that we had a candidate that ran in the Democratic primary, since we're Democrats, and you said at the beginning that we just talking Democrats.
Yeah.
That won when they lost the primary, the person that went to and won the runoff went back to that person for support, and the person looked at them with their arms crossed.
I believe it.
And we gotta stop that. We gotta stop that. And it was a mid-ticket race. I'm not talking about top of the ticket or bottom of the ticket, but we've got to really be concerned about. And I think if we have people that are interested in running for these constitutional offices, last time I checked, they are up every 4 years. So the time to get prepared, and look, I was in state party office for 4 years, so I know. I was down and qualified for several cycles, and I see how people come in at the last minute and qualify. I think everybody has a right to run, certainly. But I think that once a person wins, then I think that there's a duty to support the person that's in there to win.
Absolutely.
However, I do think that what we've seen this year, we haven't seen anything quite like that. I think that once this election is over, that there needs to be some come to Jesus sessions.
Amen.
And
I got you.
But we are all Democrats at the end. I agree with you. I think that that other candidate who shall not be named by me, because I don't put them on. And see, here I think a lot of us, when we're mocking the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, I think we need to understand that any publicity is still publicity, and that's the reason why I don't even talk about him. My household will be supporting Senator Warnock. I ain't voting against anybody else. Okay.
Amen. Gotcha. Let's go on, Pastor. What you think?
Yeah, I think there is a need for moral leadership, persons who have credentials and history and respectability, who can call into the conference room and to sit down and reason with those parties involved. And you ask about where are those pastors old time? I said, they dead. Because we haven't really passed on that mantle. And if you look at persons in my age category, they're dead and certainly they're retired. we're moving on, and the replacement has not been at the same level. But we've got to identify those persons with the moral credibility, and can call in those who are running for public office. So the one who's leading, the one who lost, can come together and forge a team. Now, the thing I always, persons who ran and lost, I raised the question with them, is this the position you really want? Now, I did that with folk in my congregation. And I said, now, if this really the position you want, then you're running now for 4 years later.
All right, all
4
right.
years later, they're elected.
What you say, Robert, quick? Because
I
I
was
got
hoping-
some tough more questions I need to
Yeah, I was
ask.
hoping I'd get saved by the bell, and I'm glad to stay longer, but that's a tough one. I think, there's so much inside politics. It's almost sort of like a sibling rivalry when you get into this. I'll say Kip, Carr, Mike, and myself, we've run, and we can tell you, some of those dynamics. You become sensitive when you don't get the support you need. Certainly, everyone should be rallying behind Stacey, but when you're a candidate, specifically a Black male candidate, and if you really see the dynamics of what's going on and how marginalized we are and how we've lost that mantle in the community to Black women, you really have to be emotionally, mature and intelligent enough to pick up the mantle and do the right thing.
Okay, all right. Mike, what you think?
Oh, you ain't about to let that one slide by me now, right? So I'm gonna answer this from a perspective of a two-time candidate, right?
All right, give me 1 minute.
I'm gonna give you one quick minute. I can look at myself. I got all the experience in the world. I got all the know-how and know a lot of things going on. And I ran for a seat twice. And I consider myself talented, being a political consultant and knowing what candidates look like. Not one time within that 6-year period of time did anybody from any party, any organization, anybody that walked up, pat you on the back, say, boy, you're going to be somebody, you're going to be a rock star. Nobody reached out. I want to thank Ms. Chatman for being the first person to even reach out to, because that's how you start to bring people back.
Thank you.
Sometimes we want to come back, but we don't know a way back because people alienate you when you run for offices, especially against incumbents. But instead, we should be preparing those young men and young women. See, that was my plan. Had I got elected, I wasn't going to be in there forever. 2 years, 2 terms. I was ready to turn around and bring that next person up and watch the roots of our work take labor, and stand for itself. That's how you strengthen a generation. Instead, we keep beating people and leaving them on the sideline. We losing valuable talent that we could have out there structuring, grooming, and getting better. I'm thankful for my dad for his 17 years of service, but his opportunity to me, giving me access to the Georgia General Assembly, I took it and I ran with it. And so I'm thankful for that opportunity, but so many other young men and women, if they had that opportunity, man, hey. And so that was, bring me on back, bring us on back. Mr. Dawson, Mr. Carr, everybody, we bring us on back.
Okay, this is going to be a yes or no because I got a question and we got about 10 minutes, 7 minutes now, maybe 10 minutes. Do you think it's time for leaders that's been in office 20, 30, even 10 years to start grooming the next person? It's time for them to pass the mantle. Do you think it's a yes or no, Mike? Yes or no?
Okay.
Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Okay,
pass the baton.
Robert Dawson, yes or no?
Pass the baton, pass it to me.
Okay. Pastor, do you think it's time?
As one who never ran for office, and it appears I'm the only one on this panel who's never run for office,
Right.
And the answer is yes, but 20 or more years is too long. I think the process needs to start earlier.
Yeah, yes or no?
Yes, and I want to qualify that by exactly what Pastor Kimbrough just stated. I think that the time to start mentoring should not be at the end of 20 years. I think the moment that a person is elected, before the end of their first term, they should already be trying to groom someone to replace them. It should not, but I agree with you. I think that the process should all, because look, I was in party office. I got elected against a state legislator who had been in office for several terms. I wanted to serve one term and I was out, and that's exactly what I did. And I think that that's the kind of mindset that we need to have, that we need to continue with, is once you're in office, when you first get elected, and I'm sure we get some that will be sworn in for the first time in January of 2023, the first thing that we need to tell them is, who are you mentoring right now?
Right. We got 5 minutes, so I'm gonna cut off. This is a question, and it's gonna be a yes or no, and then we're going into the closing because we got 5 minutes. Will we ever see what's going on in this election now in our lifetime again? Kip, yes or no?
Yes.
Pastor
Yes.
Robert?
This is Georgia. This is Fulton County. Absolutely, yes.
This is the new normal. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question that say, find out who they're mentoring. Okay, got you. That was the question. Now, in closing, I want to thank you guys. I think this was a great show. I could just sit here and just talk with you. I agree with, pardon me?
Part two.
We'll do a part 2, promise you. After the election, we're going to come back. You guys are going to be the ones that come back after the election.
Absolutely. Would love to.
I believe everything that you said. What I said, I supported certain folks during this election because I thought this was a crucial time for us. But when elections come up again, it's going to be a shift because it's time for folks to pass the mantle. We got great folks out there. It's time. Closing remarks. 1 second, Mike.
First and foremost, again, I want to thank Take a Stand and Ms. Chatman for inviting us on. I want to thank Mr. Dawson, Mr. Carr, and Pastor Kimbrough for coming on as well, and your knowledge as well. And the people that listen, I want to thank you all, because if you listen, then you are already in tune. Now turn around and go tell somebody else that's not listening so they can be in tune. And let's just stay rolling, stay focused on this political climate and everything that we have in front of us. God bless.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, yes, again, same thing. Thanks to all. Thanks especially to Damita for carrying out this hard work of civic engagement. I want everyone to be aware, City of South Fulton, District 7, there's a hotly contested city council race down there. Be on the lookout for that, and then also educate yourself on those 4 ballot initiatives that we have to vote on this year.
Absolutely. Pastor?
Thank you, Ms. Chapman, I felt almost insisting that I participate. And my confession is this is the first time I've been on this kind of program, and I had real apprehension about it. And some of my friends want me to do this kind of experience, and I don't think it's my thing. But I've enjoyed being with colleagues today. And of course, they don't know me, but it's been informative. And I think that it's going to be very important to have this group back, or a similar group, to evaluate the election. And it should not be a long time coming. And then to lay out the plans for the next round.
Thank you. Kip.
Damita, thank you so much for the invitation, and to my colleagues on the panel. It was great learning from you and sharing with you today. Let me just say very close in closing that as we prepare for this election, if you have not already voted, we hear the word and the terms voting plan. I would encourage everybody to actually put a plan in place. If you know when you're going to vote, write it down on your calendar, set a notification on your phone. Learn about all the candidates, especially the ones who are not up on TV. We've got races that the media is not talking about.
That's right.
And we're going to leave the polls wondering, well, I didn't see any commercials or I did not receive any direct mail. So I encourage you to learn about that. And just like Mr. Dawson said, we've got constitutional amendments on the ballot, and there's not any real information about those things. So please educate yourself, develop a plan to vote, and then encourage everybody in your family to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
I look forward to coming back after the election, and peace and power.
Well, I'm gonna tell you guys now, I had someone to come on the show on November the 14th, and I'm gonna call them and push them to the 28th. I'm gonna have all four of you guys back November the 14th, and we gonna be victorious. I believe that I say 90% of the Democrats are going to get across that finish line. That's my take. I want to thank you for coming today on Take a Stand. It was a great show. I want to thank the pastor, first time, smart, intelligent, and he knows. If you want to know something, go to this pastor. Thank you so much. We look forward on the 14th. Mark your calendars. Robert and Mike, I need you, even if Kim, you're available, I need you guys to go down to Washington County with me, and let's get Tabitha in there. She's having some issues with them folks down there. We need to get her in there. So let's talk. Let's fill up our car. Robert, you gonna drive. I don't want to drive. I'm gonna let you, and we go down to Washington County.
Send me the information.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, and have a good day.
And thanks for
you.
your
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.